has introduced legislation to bring those industries back home. Joining me now is Senator Tom Cotton from the great state of Arkansas. Senator, how are you going to get those companies to start producing here? Because the message from all the globalists is always, oh, then it's going to cost 10 times more, until you have trillions of dollars lost in the economy because of this shutdown of the American economy, because we can't protect our people. But how do you do it? How do you get them back?
Well, Laura, I think most Americans are shocked when they've learned in recent days that so many of our basic drugs are made in China. Antibiotics, penicillin, ibuprofen, to say nothing of dozens of ingredients that go into finished products. So what we're going to do is both help create supply here and create demand. So the demand is going to come through the federal government's purchasing power. The Department of Defense, the VA, Medicare, Medicaid, and other agencies purchase an immense amount of drugs, many of which unfortunately originate from China. In a few years, we're going to say that ends. There can be no more drugs from China purchased by the federal government. Then second, we're going to give incentives for manufacturers and entrepreneurs to locate pharmaceutical factories here in the United States. For example, by allowing them to immediately expense the cost of building those factories and buying that equipment. And I think that you can produce generic drugs that have been around for a long time in places like rural Arkansas, just as you can in rural China. It's not going to be that much more expensive, and we can see that it's going to make us much safer and much more secure.
And Senator Cotton, we're going to need jobs. I mean, we're going to have an enormous unemployment roll if people are really going to be staying in their houses longer than a few weeks. Even with a few weeks, we're going to have a lot of damage done. So we need these jobs. And with that having been said, back in 2018, the New York Times, which is often not too anti-China, to put it lightly, they were reporting on the following. For over a year, the Chinese government has withheld lab samples of a rapidly evolving influenza virus from the United States, specimens needed to develop vaccines and treatments. Despite persistent requests from government officials and research institutions, China has not provided samples of the dangerous virus, a type of bird flu, of course, called H7N9. So shouldn't we have been on notice that you can't really trust the Chinese to give us the information we need about critical points, such as these horrible health scares and possible epidemics?
Yeah, Laura, we definitely should have been on notice going back decades. It was never a smart idea to outsource our basic industrial productivity to a country like China. We need that in America. And unfortunately, though, it's not just China. China's just, in the last 2 weeks, threatened to withhold basic drugs. But other countries, including allied countries, in the face of a global pandemic, are also withholding basic pharmaceutical ingredients, basic medical supplies and devices. That's why it's so vital that we have that productive capacity here in the United States for our safety and for jobs.
Real quick, Senator, this is Governor Cuomo in New York, who's been pretty good and pretty trying to be positive in a very horrific situation in New York, given the number of infections and deaths. This is what he said about the N95 mask situation. Watch.
If I had a New York State Defense Production Act, I would use it. We need masks. If you're making clothing, figure out if you can make masks. I'll fund it. So I'm doing everything I can to increase the production. That's besides having people all over the globe trying to buy product.
Yeah, buying product on the open market. 3M, Honeywell, among the companies that do make these masks, but they make them in China for the most part, correct?
Yeah, unfortunately, too much of that capacity is in China. I agree with Governor Cuomo. Companies should start looking into that kind of crash course for manufacturing what we need here until we can get a long-term solution on the back end of this crisis.
Yeah, there are actually seamstresses who are taking up a mask-making operation to try to help out. That's how desperate the situation is for our healthcare workers. We got to do whatever we can to get them the protection they need. Senator Cotton, thanks so much. Coming up.